In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a t-shirt with a cutout design. For this project, you're going to need scissors, pins, a stretchy fabric. I also used a ribbing for my detailing, but if you like, you can just stick with the one stretchy fabric. Thread in the colors of your fabric, and then a t-shirt to trace. And as you can see, this is one with the ribbing and one with the same fabric. So we're going to start by tracing out our t-shirt. Make sure you're tracing 1 centimeter from your side seams. And then fold in your sleeve so you're tracing just the bodice. I'm going to show you 3 different ways, one tracing out the t-shirt, one draping on a mannequin, and one draping on yourself. I find tracing out the t-shirt the easiest technique. Once you trace out half the shirt, to keep it symmetric, I usually just fold it in half and then continue to cut. You can then place that piece back on your t-shirt to test the accuracy. If it's a little off, that's okay, because the fabric's stretched, we have some leeway. Now for cutting out the front piece, I'm going to use the piece that I just cut out as a stencil and just make it a little bit wider on the sides. I made mine wider by about 3 centimeters on each side, and then cut it the same for the armholes and the neckline. Finally, we're going to cut out the sleeves, which can be a little trickier, but it helps to use pins and place them along where the seam is. Then you can cut 1 centimeter away from those pins. And then I'm going to use the same technique of folding it in half to create a symmetrical pattern piece. And then you can fold it in half and test out the sizing. If you're happy with how it looks, you can cut out the exact same for the second sleeve. If you prefer to drape on a mannequin, you can do that as well by cutting out 2 squares, pinning them at the side seams and at the shoulders, and then cutting away the excess. If you don't have a mannequin or a t-shirt, you can always pin it on yourself. It's just a little trickier. But you're going to cut out 2 squares, pin at the side seams and the shoulder seams, and then cut away the excess. While cutting away the excess, you can then shape your neck and your armholes. And cut the length that you'd like for your t-shirt. And then sew the shoulders and the side seams. So now taking the pieces that we cut earlier, we're going to place them right sides together and pin them at the shoulder seams and the side seams. And we're going to fold our sleeves right sides together as well and pin them together. And then using a zigzag stitch, we're going to sew along all the seams that we just pinned, the sleeves, the shoulders, and the side seams. When sewing stretchy fabrics, I like to trim away the excess and then go over the seam again with another zigzag stitch, but this time having the needle going off the side of the fabric so it locks in all the extra threads. We're now ready to attach our sleeves. So with our bodice inside out and our sleeve right side out, we're going to insert the sleeve inside the shirt, making sure to align our side seam and our underarm seam. So again, right sides together, aligning the seams and inserting the sleeve. And then we're going to sew that with a zigzag stitch. And then I'm going to trim that seam as well and go over it again to lock in my threads. We're now ready to make our detail cutout. So with our scissors, we're just going to cut a shape on the front of the t-shirt, making sure it's centered. The size and shape of the cutout is really up to you, and it might help to try it on before you cut it entirely. You're then going to cut a strip out of your ribbing or the other fabric that you're using that's going to be long enough to go around the cutout. If you're using ribbing, you want to make sure that your stripes are facing vertically on your strip. This is something that will prevent gathering, and I didn't do it on mine, but it'll really help the outcome of the shirt. We're now going to cut the collar, which is going to be folded in half, so make sure you're cutting it twice as long as you'd like it, plus 1 centimeter seam allowance. I cut the collar longer than I'd need it, so I'd have extra to play around with. We're now going to attach the strip to the cutout. So placing right sides together, we're going to pin along the cutout. And as you can see, the pin should be on the inside of the loop and the piece should be on the outside of your shirt. And then sew along where you pinned with a zigzag stitch, this time sewing as close to the edge as you can. You're then going to fold over your fabric once and then fold it over again, tucking in both raw edges of your fabric. And then pin in the seam, making sure to lock in the fabric behind it. You're going to do that all along the band that you're attaching. And remember, you can use the same fabric instead of a ribbing for this piece. Now with your pins placed in the seam and locking in the back layer of the fabric, you can sew along where you placed your pins. You're going to sew this with a straight stitch and in the color thread of the strip. The second step is to fold that strip over and onto the front of the fabric, and then you're going to pin it along the outside edge. And then again with a straight stitch, you're going to sew along where you pinned. Next, we're going to hem the bottom by just folding it over twice and ironing. And then we're going to do the same for the sleeves. You can also iron the cutout as well. And then sew with a straight stitch along your hem and your sleeves. The final step is to finish the neckline. So we're going to measure out our collar, making sure that it fits along the neckline, and then cutting it, leaving 1 centimeter seam allowance on either side. I also decided to make mine a little thinner. So we're going to start by folding this piece right sides together and sewing with a zigzag stitch. And then you can trim away any excess before we attach our collar. So we're going to fold our collar in half, making sure that the right sides of the fabric are on the outside, and then we're going to pin it to the t-shirt. So we're pinning it right sides together with the raw edges facing up. And then we're going to sew along with a zigzag stitch. And flipping that piece up should give you a sense of what the shirt's going to look like. So again, just sew with a zigzag stitch and you're all done. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, please subscribe.